Hey, you have Patrick Findora here, co-founder at Vetted Biz. Very excited to have on Lane Kofed, who's the CEO and president of Assisting Hands, as well as Dave Tasto, who's a franchisee as well as an area developer for Assisting Hands. He's had an Assisting Hands franchise for 4 years now. So Lane and Dave, thanks so much for taking the time to connect.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us, Patrick.
Lane, maybe you could talk a little bit about how you got into the franchising space, and you've been with Assisting Hands now for quite some time. Maybe you could give us a little background on yourself and how you connected with Assisting Hands and what's kept you continuing to grow the business.
Yeah. A Dr. Gail Silverstein and 3 farmers from Idaho started this company. And I happen to be one of the Boy Scouts that grew up with 2 of those farmers were my scout leaders. And my background's Price Waterhouse in public accounting and finance. And they'd started this great company and losing money, trying to get it going. And they contacted me 20 years after I had been gone from my hometown where I grew up, and asked me if I would come and join them and help them build this company. And I had just had the experience of my father had cancer for 10 years, and we'd gone through the whole, all the care that it took for our family and for outside care to come into the home to care for him to the end of life. And that was maybe 8 or 9 months. He passed away before these guys approached me. And so when they approached me with this opportunity, of course, I thought, well, I understand the industry. We've just been through it for the last 10 years. And I also saw, we've talked about the senior populations, 78 million baby boomers on the way, and they're not going to need care. And it's interesting to me that they're not even there yet. The oldest baby boomers are only 76 this year. And they're not really needing care in their early 70s. They're still coming. There's still 78 million people that are going to need, some care in the future. So the industry resonated with me. The company itself, some of the best people I know are my partners now. I bought into the ownership with them and gave them a cash infusion, which they needed. And I started as a chief operations officer of the company.
Dave, what attracted you to this industry, and then why Assisting Hands?
Well, my wife and I had wanted to start a business for a number of years, but hadn't found something that we were passionate about. An experience with my grandmother, actually, similar to Lane's towards the end of life. But that helped me find that passion that I had. She received care from some amazing caregivers through the hospice benefit. They helped her get cleaned up, dressed, and ready for breakfast each day. And what really inspired me was a story from one of the caregivers who I met at my grandmother's funeral. Her own grandmother was going through a very similar situation with dementia. She took the initiative and shared blouses between her grandmother and my grandmother. And my grandmother was so proud wearing, her favorite new blouse. It inspired me. So witnessing that compassion and caregiving, I knew I wanted to start, something or be able to provide that same level of care that my grandmother received. And I have to say, it's been quite rewarding to have that opportunity with Assisting Hands.
Yeah, I can only imagine where, later years, a lot of people aren't there and there's loneliness. So to the extent that your business is really making people's later years more enjoyable, or I would say more fulfilling rather than necessarily enjoyable, it's an amazing thing. I've seen that firsthand. I think everyone has seen that, or at one point you'll experience yourself where you'll need a caregiver, or you have a close loved one that has had a caregiver oftentimes for many years, not just months.
That's right.
We've had, so Chuck McKinney introduced us from Franchise Broker Association, and we've had, there's a lot of franchise brokers that use Vetted Biz for data on franchises. We have thousands of franchises on our platform. And a couple brokers have reached out, like asking the differences between all these senior care franchises. So I don't want to put you two on the spot too much, but there are a lot of senior care franchises. I love the industry. The payback period is the best. I haven't seen an industry that has a better payback period. The startup investment's pretty low, 100, 150K. The resale value, generally 8X that. if you have the business for 5 years, 7 years, it's not like a food business like Subway where you open up for 300K and you'll be lucky to sell it for 200K. Like you're getting a nice multiple on that return if you sell it and it's not your kids that take over the business. So I love the industry, and I think the impact on what you provide for the local community. If I was going to own a franchise, that would be it. It would be something in this industry for those reasons and more. But I'm curious to hear from you two, like kind of what distinguishes Assisting Hands versus some of these other franchises in the senior care space.
Yeah. So Patrick, I'll give you one quick example. Assisting Hands just won last year Franchise Business Review's top low-cost franchise. We're the top low-cost franchise, and we've been climbing the charts in the franchise 500 from Entrepreneur Source. We used to barely make the list, and we were really proud of that. Partly because of COVID. Last year, we ranked 163 out of the top 500 franchise companies. That's a big accomplishment. And we were just trying to make the top 500. There's a lot of franchise companies. So climbing that list has been really good for us. And, senior care, it's all about caring for people. And it's about doing good in your communities. And it really has brings really quality people to our organization. And one of the things that we've really tried to do is just recruit really good-hearted, smart, business-minded people like Dave Tasto.
And Dave, were you looking at different brands? Like, were you set on this industry, or was it kind of like Assisting Hands and then you were looking at like other industry franchises?
Well, I did like the industry. I met some folks, some area representatives just like myself, but did kind of open up the evaluation before I kind of settled in. But for a lot of the reasons Lane already mentioned, as far as the demographics in the industry was appealing. But as far as Assisting Hands, what really appealed to me was the area representative model, where there's multiple layers of support. You get support from the national office, from the area representative in your local region. But then also, just within the franchise, we have a great group of other owners, like Lane mentioned.
I like that. Patrick, I think it's the only senior care franchise that has that kind of model.
It's not the only one, but we are the major, we are the largest, of course, that has that kind of model. And it's not very common in a services industry to have that kind of model. But the benefits are huge. And I've had a lot of people ask me, why do you have this model in franchising? It's typically more of a model for restaurants or something different like that. But we see it as a win-win for any new franchisee coming in. Often has the national team for all their support and training, and a local area rep that knows state laws and licensing requirements in the local flair to the support and guidance. And it's been a win-win for us. Our company's grown tremendously, and we think has a lot to do with the dual support and guidance that they receive from the area reps and the national team.
It makes sense. Yeah. I mean, especially given the local, like state by state, what regulations are. And I can imagine like some issues the franchisees dealing directly with the franchisor, and then other ones, it's their rep where they probably know pretty clearly from day one who to go to for what problem.
Right. The other thing I think that I would say really distinguishes us is that area rep model, but also our founder, Dr. Gail Silverstein. She's a PhD in healthcare management. She was a pioneer in this industry. Early on, her parents were sick, and she was trying to help them find competent professional care. And she just couldn't find it out there. It was people that show up late and leave early, and it just lacked a lot of professionalism. And so she founded Assisting Hands on the principles of quality and trained caregivers and professionalism. And then we've added a lot of technology to make it a very high tech experience. For instance, we have geofencing. Timekeeping system, so we know the caregivers in the home. We know they're there with the client. They're not showing up late and leaving early. Those problems are all solved through great technology. And then that technology timekeeping is transferred into the payroll and the billing, so that the clients who the kids are often paying to help their parents. They know that the billing is exactly accurate, and the caregiver's only getting paid for the time that they're in the home caring for the client. And then you add a lot of the quality control that comes through that, the customer service, the client care is all enhanced through great technology. And I'd say, we've gone to great lengths to have the best technology in place for caring for the senior populations and disabled.
I would add the technology related to our care notes that are available to family members or other clinicians in healthcare electronically through a secure HIPAA-controlled login has been very helpful throughout the pandemic and just in every day. Families can take those to a specialist, a neurologist, or whatever they need, but it's electronic records of our visits.
And you went through a few of the accolades. The entrepreneur list is impressive, but I'm more impressed by the franchise business review because that's really franchisee satisfaction levels and how happy and how supported the franchisees are in the system. So the fact that you are the top low cost franchise group, and I think they measure over 300, which is already a self-selected group, is phenomenal. Because I had a franchisee on from Brightstar. Their franchisees are suing the franchisor. So it's like kind of the exact opposite side of the spectrum where they're not happy. And you have like 150 or so of the hundreds of franchisees that are literally suing the franchisor. So, I mean, I think there's like a scale of like satisfaction, and it's like on one, it has to get really bad for a lawsuit to happen. Probably there's a lot of differences, but like, how do you ensure that the franchisees are satisfied, but also you as the franchisor are making money to be able to reinvest and grow the business?
Yeah, I'll tell you, we from the beginning, we made it a point that we were going to have a close relationship with our franchisees and create a culture where people feel cared about, and that culture is so important because if the franchise owners feel that they're cared about and they're heard, then they have that same culture, try to have that same culture in their offices and with their caregivers and their office staff. And we've never had a lawsuit, knock on wood, but we've always tried to just deal fairly and honestly with our franchise owners, and the culture is such that we get together every year for a retreat, and it's like a big family reunion. I mean, almost everybody comes every year. They're excited to be there. We try to have great educational speakers. We try to share ideas and have panel discussions with some of our top producers and best practices. But it's more than that. We get together and have fun a lot, together.
Yeah, I saw the Franchise Times article where you're on the ranch and all different sorts of activities. And franchisee, part of the Discovery Day, they're going to your ranch?
Every day. Every time they come for Discovery Day, we don't make people get on horses, but we always offer. Yeah. And so my son and I rodeo, and we do team roping and a lot of competition with horses. So we don't have just those horses that follow, blindly on a line. We have really good ranch horses, really highly trained horses, and we put people on them without concern for if they're going to get bucked off or something. We know our horses and trust them too much, but we do that so we can build a relationship with people. And then down the road, when times get tough, we've had that experience. We know each other well enough to say, okay, let's work this out. Let's not get hostile with each other. And so we've never had, our attorneys say that we're a unicorn, that there's hardly an FTD that doesn't have a lot of legal battles.
Yeah, especially once you pass 100 units, usually there's a couple lawsuits in there.
Yeah, we're 180 units now and never had anything in our FTD legals.
And this ranch is where you live day to day?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, like you're inviting someone, kind of a stranger that you're going to be forming a long-term business relationship into your home. I don't know like other franchisors that do that. Probably like 1 or 2% are like having their prospective franchisees meet their family, interact with like some of your most prized assets, these horses.
This was just 2 nights ago. This was a Discovery Day, a guy from California. And of course, we have what's called Boot Row, where we let them choose a pair of cowboy boots, and we bring out cowboy hats they can try on. And we put them on our horses. And that's just my lifestyle here. My dad was an attorney, and yet we grew up with horses and ranching on the side, on the
I can
evenings
really
and
see the appeal.
weekends.
We have most of our employees in Argentina. We have about 30
Oh, yeah.
people in Argentina, and we had our offsite there in August. My brother and I flew down from Miami, and we did like a polo day experience where you could go on horseback. I rode around a bit and played around with the polo mallet for the first time. And when my wife and I travel, whether it's Costa Rica, wherever, we always try to go horseback riding. It's a great bonding experience, and it's hard to have a bad time.
Sounds like you need to come out to Boise, Idaho, Patrick.
Definitely. No, I would love that.
And the great thing is, lots of times people will bring their children out later. A lot of times they come up for Discovery Day, experience that, and we always invite them to come back and bring their families and spend some time on the ranch with us. But it's all about relationships and trusted relationships that are important to us.
Well, it seems like you're super open for feedback and cross collaboration, whether it's between the franchisee to the franchisor or the area developer, and it's probably with that openness, everyone rises up.
That's actually really true because our area developers are really our partners in this business, and they're our most trusted source of, they're also franchisees, but they're working day to day with us. Their incentives are exactly the same as ours to help people succeed in this business. And so they're actually our most trusted, helpful partners in knowing what's going on out there and trying to solve problems together.
And for assisting hands, going more back to the business side, is it non-medical home care, or do you do any other medical as well? Could you tell me a little bit about the services offered?
Yeah, Dave, go ahead on that one.
Yeah, it's a primary non-medical, but after a certain amount of time, owners can expand into the skilled care, where it's more of a home health or nursing or therapy approach as well. But as far as other avenues, there's a multiple channels. We can do the private pay. We can also get involved in Medicaid, but also Veterans Association VA contracts as well. And my office just got a VA contract this
Big
year.
deal. And if you were just an independent operator, I mean, you can't get a VA contract. They're going to want to know that someone's behind you.
Yeah, we have a lot of VA owners, and we just made a name for ourselves as a very trusted, honest, fair-minded group of people that are assisting hands.
How about on the people side? We're kind of in a weird situation. Like, people say there's a recession, but unemployment's super low. What are you guys seeing on the people side, getting these caregivers?
Yeah, that's tough in every industry. We realize, but as far as recessions, the 2008, 2009 recession, we were a little worried about it, but we went right through that session and kept growing through it, and we found that people need care, and in fact, sometimes it benefits a home care company because people can't afford to put their parents in like a nursing home or assisted living facility,
Oh,
but
yeah.
they can afford some care at home, and they can supplement the care. So we've actually grown through recessions. We actually grew more than ever through COVID. Again, because people couldn't get into the facilities to visit their loved ones, but we could because we were essential. And again, because they pulled people out of facilities and brought them back into their homes, but they needed help caring for them. And so we could come into their homes and care for them. Dave, maybe you could add to that as well.
As far as the recruiting, and the job market is tight in general in the U.S. these days, but building a reputation in your local market is really what it's all about. There's tools from our national office, recruiting platforms that we leverage nationally, but also a lot of the work is done locally. Building that reputation and having the culture within the office, not just with the franchise office, the franchisor, but within your office, that similar family culture where you're treating your employees well, taking care of them. We're seeing now in my office that they're telling their friends, and we're able to continue growing through caregiver referrals.
Yeah, it's huge. We had one key employee that referred 7 friends, and that kind of builds upon the culture. Like, if they, based on their core values, like, they're probably going to have people similar to them that have similar core values, and they're probably going to stay a lot longer too.
That's right. And they know if they're being treated well by the office that's hiring them. They tell their friends how these guys are great. They treat us well. They give us benefits, whatever the thing that each office does that brings recruiters, but it's mostly about how we treat people that really matters.
And I see it as like almost a mini marketplace where you have the customers, you have the caregivers. What side is harder? Or is it like depend? Like these last 4 years, David, have you had to focus more time on getting the caregivers, or have you focused more of your effort on getting the client who's paying the bill? Or
It's a mix
potentially
of
not paying the
both.
bill because someone else might be paying the bill, but the end client who's engaging the service.
Right. No, you have to focus on both sides. You do have to, you can't sell what you don't have. So you have to make sure that you have a qualified roster of caregivers available and ready. And that often includes just constantly hiring. So looking for the amazing caregivers that are out there to continue growing your roster. But at the same time, you can't lose sight of marketing. And the area reps help strike a great balance with each of the offices and working with them. It's a constant, kind of keep going up and up on both sides. You might feel from one day you have a little bit of, less caregivers than you'd like, but then the next day you have, more than you're ready to take on new clients.
Dave, it's been 4 years. Could you tell me a bit more about your business growth, the employees, financials, whatever you're comfortable sharing with us?
Well, in the beginning, it was just rolling up your sleeves and doing a lot of the work until you build that office team that you can bring on to take and delegate some of the specific areas of the business that either you might not be the best at. What we say, in starting up a business and working with new owners is, do what you do best and hire the rest. So you need to hire, a key staff for the key areas of the business, just basic operations within the office, marketing and recruiting. And then as an owner, you're basically leading a small office team. Continue to grow, looking for areas, new opportunities to continue to grow, new approaches or initiatives, whether it might be on the recruiting front or new, client referral channels, working with hospitals or rehabs or other types of things. But yeah, I thought I was coming into a saturated environment up here in the Boston area, suburbs of Boston, but have been able to grow significantly over the last 4 years. So happy to be, part of Assisting Hands and giving others that same
And
opportunity.
any idea who you're competing with? Like, are you competing with like a mom and pop operator, other franchisees when you're going to those referral sources?
Yeah, some of it's state by state or local, area, depending on who are the major competitors in your area. But as a brand, I wouldn't say that Assisting Hands necessarily competes with the mom and pop. We operate, as if we are all licensed operators. But
Yeah.
having started, one of our first franchisees in Florida, which is a very regulated state for all the right reasons. Up in
Yeah.
Massachusetts, there's no regulation, or very little regulations. We're not licensed businesses from the state. And so it could feel like the Wild West in Massachusetts, but all of our offices operate as if we have that licensing. But all of our owners also go above and beyond those national or those state requirements and do drive things like national criminal background and driving record checks and things like
Well,
that.
yeah, I mean, there's just such different cultures. I went to college in New England in Maine, and I've been living in South Florida now for 10 years. And like if you want to buy like a little small existing business for sale, it's the owner's definitely doing something illegal. Like where he's having workers that he's paying cash or he's doing something illegal. That's like pretty much across the board for friends, colleagues that have looked to buy an existing business here in South Florida. And that's not necessarily the same up in Boston. And then here in South Florida, there's been so much Medicaid fraud. You hear about it all the time. So I'm sure all those regulations and Florida being stricter than Massachusetts has just been based on the local business culture. And we've had an influx of people from all over the place, and it brings amazing different cultures. But with that also, business, how you conduct business in Latin America is not the same as the US. And yeah, a lot of
Yeah,
people bring
Patrick,
some of those bad habits to Florida.
that's part of the reason we thrive. Florida, for example, the state licensing requirements are pretty strict in the policy and procedure. Only 20% of the people that try to get licensed in Florida eventually get licensed. Well, we're
Wow.
100%. We never haven't gotten licensed, and that's part of the power of a franchise brand. That's part of the training and the staff that we have. We have really strong technical people in our support team that know the ins and outs of license requirements state by state. So that's part of the benefit of joining a franchise brand like Assisting Hands is that we never haven't got licensed in a state like Florida or in any state.
Time. Like if you're an entrepreneur and say before you started your Assisting Hands franchise, you quit your job, you were making 10K a month. If it takes 14 months to get the license as opposed to 6 months, 7 months, that's 70K that you've just wasted.
Right.
And we've seen that with all different types of businesses when you go the franchise versus the startup. And there's all different ways that people fast track it with brick and mortars, doing like independent conversions and other things. But without having that franchisor, I guess with your model also, the area developer navigating kind of the local regulations. I mean, I guess that's part of the way to Assisting Hands earns the keep and really justifies that initial franchise fee.
Well, it's a fast track to a great business, and it also is continual updates and technology, and we have the strongest back end technology in the industry, and you just don't get that without a company like ours that's national, that has that kind of reach and that kind of power behind the franchisees to have the best technology out there, and to have the relationships and for instance, just the knowledge and skill behind our national team as far as like licensing and state requirements and things. You just don't get that with a mom and pop or a startup. You get the power of the franchises, people that know and understand the business, and they're willing to transfer their knowledge and understanding and skill to you. And you don't get that in any other way, because usually when you start a business, everybody that knows the industry is your competitor, and they're not going to tell you the secrets of the industry. But in franchising and Assisting Hands, we're just we want everybody to have the knowledge and understanding of our founders and our top producers, and we go to great lengths to share that knowledge, and we have annual retreats because of that, and we have a culture that people are just willing to share, and people call each other and work together and help each other out. It's inspiring to see how much the culture of Assisting Hands creates success for new franchise owners.
We've looked at like franchise closure rates, transfer rates, everything. Essentially, like for an average franchise, out of thousands of franchises, 15% of the systems turning over, a little less, more like 12% of the systems turning over every 3 years, or sorry, every year. So you have it where there's some systems where every 3 years it's 40% turnover. But essentially, the hold time for a franchise, you could say on average is 7 or 8 years. I imagine for Assisting Hands, it might be higher than that. But there does sometimes come a time where people, maybe a spouse is moving, they're not able to run the business day to day. They just get bored with that industry and they want to go on to something else. There's different reasons why people might want to sell a business. Do you facilitate that process? Have you seen other franchisees buy it? What's like the typical process? Someone's grown the business, they've built up to $1 million plus in revenue, and they want to move on to something else, like say year 7, 8. Like how do you help the franchisee, if at all?
Yeah, we really support them in their resale needs, and we've had several people retire. We've had people have to close their doors for family reasons or moving or things like that. And we're really supportive of that, because, if, for instance, if they're going through something hard and difficult with their family, they've got to close their doors. We've never charged them any termination fees or had any problems with that. We just try to be as supportive as we can of their decisions. If they're ready to retire, we help them. We do the transfer paperwork. We work closely with their attorneys to help them transfer it to a good owner. And of course, we need to approve that owner, because they'll become a new franchisee in our system. So we go to great lengths to help support them in their personal needs. And again, that's a culture of caring for people, and
Exactly.
and not just the hard-nosed legal battles that you typically see in corporate America.
Yeah, and you've seen that. I mean, I'm gonna have an interview with a 1,000 unit plus chain, and like just like essentially they build out the location, and like then the franchisor buys it back for pennies on the dollar, or like another franchisee buys it back for pennies on the dollars. So, and I've seen some of the data on Assisting Hand transactions that have been SBA approved. Basically, SBA lenders have reported on Assisting Hands transactions, and like they're selling for a lot of money. Definitely a lot more than the initial investment amount, which is a good testament.
Yeah, we're pre-approved with the SBA, meaning we're pre-qualified basically for our brand to be approved for SBA loans because of our track record, because of our financial status.
Dave, anything you wish you would have known earlier during the franchise evaluation process?
I think my takeaway is making sure you get all the way into validation, where you get to speak with other owners that are in the system or have left the system. That's where I found the most value in speaking with other folks that I'm going to be working with for a number of years. Now, having those relationship with the same folks I did validation with an assisting hands, I'm on monthly calls. These are grassroots calls that we just folks that went through orientation together and now are working together to help grow each other's business. I found that amazing. But the key thing is to get to the process in evaluating a franchise called validation, where you get to speak with other owners.
Yeah, it's a huge point. And I mean, ideally, you're not the smartest guy in the room. Like, ideally, there's a lot of other franchisees that know wildly more about business, industry, and you're learning together with them as well as the franchisor. As I've seen in some systems where there's someone that was very successful in their past endeavors, but they join a franchise system that, like, the average unit volume, the average sales is like 250K. And it's just like, no one's really making money and you can't make that work. And the franchisees that already joined aren't driving growth. And it's just, that you're not getting value from the franchisor, you're not getting value from other franchisees. And I think during the validation process, you pick up on all that. And I'm sure you were probably pretty impressed by some of the people you talked to before joining Assisting Hands.
For sure. And I think Lane, touched on it a few times, is the family culture. Basically, it was, open arms with any information, any questions I asked, many of the owners, specific details on, their, initial expenses year to year, is what their revenue track record was, very detailed, data that helped me build my business model and looking and evaluating how I was going to perform. Very helpful.
That's amazing. Well, I've enjoyed this conversation. I'm sure prospective franchisees, franchisors, even current franchisees that maybe are in a system that they want to get out of, but like the idea of franchising might want to consider an Assisting Hands. Lane, do you have any closing thoughts? And then Dave?
Yeah, I'll just say we have unbelievably good people in this organization, and what we look for when people come to us is the heart for the business is critically important in this business. We turn people down that just all they want is to make a lot of money, and we know they can make a lot of money in this industry, but it's really about caring for people in need and doing something good in your communities. And so by and large, the people that come to us have good hearts, or they don't really make it through our development process. But the other thing we look for is just good business skills. They don't need to have a medical background or experience in the industry, but good business skills and the heart for the business have proven to be the ingredients that all of our franchise owners have in common. And it's created a great culture because it's a lot of good people that have joined Assisting Hands.
And how about you, Dave? Any closing thoughts especially for prospective franchisees?
I would say after 4 years, it can be quite a very fulfilling business. I get voicemails or calls from families. Engineering history, I'd have to go do research for voice of customer research. But in home care, you can hear directly from families or clients directly. When they say, "I want Mary every day," or "I couldn't do this without her," it just energizes me and keeps me, fulfilling that passion inside me to keep doing more and helping others. Just like my grandmother received that amazing care. That's what I get to do now.
Yeah, I mean, life's short, so might as well be fully fulfilled and hit that self-actualization and make money along the way. And it seems like Assisting Hands, you guys are well set to make those check marks and more.
Yeah, it's been a great ride. I've been with the company for 13 years now. And each year we've grown, had our best year ever. And it's because of all the good people that keep joining us. And we've just had a good run as a company.
Well, Lane and Dave, I really enjoyed today's conversation. Again, I think all our listeners are going to get a lot out of this. And what's the best way if someone wants to get more information on Assisting Hands? What's the best way to get in contact? The website or one of your emails? What would you recommend?
Well, definitely our website can take you right to our development site and assistinghands.com. And then you get the pleasure of talking with Mr. Dan Durney, who's our development director here. And he's also a comedian on the side, so he tries to keep it light and fun and have a good time with people when they call him.
Well, thanks. We'll be sure to include the website in today's notes. And again, thanks so much for both you guys joining today.
Thanks, Patrick.
Thank you, Patrick.